in a moment. And we've got them in one building. That building doesn't have some of the amenities such as gym or pool, and that lowers the body corporate cost in that building. So they're not just affordable for the initial purchase, but the ongoing.
So no salt and peppering then?
No, not in this development. No.
All right, I will. It's gone Facebook Live now. I don't know what happened to your presentation then.
Wonderful. Thank you, Fiona. We're back going.
I'll put my hand up if I can.
So we move.
Sorry,
now.
can I just interrupt? I've got a question here.
Oh, yes, sure.
Someone online. What does affordable mean?
Well, affordable is and that's not the topic of tonight's presentation because that's another building that's already approved. But my basic understanding is that affordable, there's a database managed by the government of people who can purchase an affordable dwelling, and there's a price cap on those affordable dwellings, is the summary. So when we go to the podium level plan, you can see the extensive landscaping. 40% of the site is landscaped either on ground level or podium, and a significant portion of that, almost 20% of the site, is deep-rooted planting. Building 4 in the top right corner, you can see is 2 wings, again separated by podium landscape, and that allows sun into the heart of the site. North is straight up on this diagram, and that's a significant improvement actually on the former office proposal, which had the building, although lower, it went straight across the site. So there's a significant solar access improvement. This is a northwest view that shows that progressive rise in height from the lowest building at the northwest up towards the tallest building at the southeast, which is that rise in height towards Lovett Tower, which is 24 commercial stories in height. These are some views of the other buildings already approved and under construction around the site, just to give some context. This is building 1, which is the affordable housing building, affordable and public housing, view from Melrose Drive, DA approved and under construction shortly. That's a view of the central landscape space at the heart of the site with the deep root planting, so there'll be genuine large canopy trees. This is a view of building 2, which is also approved, 184 apartments on that landscape podium, construction due to commence soon. The pool is on the Melrose Drive frontage. Another view of the Corinna Street frontage, which shows how building 2 will provide an active facade activation to the Corinna streetscape. And you can see also the laneways that come into the heart of the site. And this is a south-facing street, Corinna Street, so we know a cafe won't necessarily be well taken up there. So that's a communal bicycle and scooter hub with bicycle workshop and the like for the residents. So it ensures activity. This is building 3, which is the tallest building, which is currently under assessment at the corner of Corinna Street and Furzer Street. Building 2 and 3 share a similar architecture of the bronzed facades. And a view of building 3 along Furzer Street, again with that continual active facade. And Furzer Street is a street where cafes will work because you get that good solar access, and you've got all the office workers along Furzer Street. So there's a series of cafes and residential lobby. And another view of building 3 showing the typical podium, which is always landscaped with pools and communal amenities. So the ground landscape is for the public, the podiums are for the residents largely. Now some plans of building 4. There are 4 levels of parking, some underground and some within the podium. So every dwelling gets approximately 1 car space. There are 189 apartments, as mentioned, within the building in 2 wings, Each wing has 7 apartments per floor, and this shows how they open onto the landscape podium for residents. And the lobbies always have, you come out of your lift and you've got daylight and ventilation. You overlook that landscape. So there's very few apartments per lobby, which is nice. Then the typical floor, the apartments are all designed to maximise solar aspect. North is up. The building features recessed balconies. They're more comfortable in winter when you've got high winds sometimes in Canberra, and the living rooms are all pushed to the facade, so it maximises solar access. There are no south-facing apartments. The 2 apartments that are most southerly also have east and west orientation of the living rooms. There's a rooftop space for residents with pool, indoor lounge and outdoor terrace. So we get landscape at 3 levels: ground, podium and rooftop. And a section through the building shows the 4 levels of parking, some in podium, retail and lobby frontage at ground floor, and the building height ranging from 14 to 16 stories, with landscape at podium and landscape at rooftop. It wasn't me. Please mute at home. Finally, solar aspect, as mentioned, the 2 towers, as opposed to the office building across the frontage, actually benefits solar access into the heart of the site. This is the sun at midday on the winter solstice. And as previously presented, we've designed the master plan with these wide 24-metre interfaces between buildings to let sun into the public park at the south of the site, rather than building across the frontage. And finally, some views of the building. It's consistent with the architecture of Building 1, which is actually the affordable building, where we've got this green tinted base of podium and then more white banded concrete design up the building. But here we bring the base, that green tint, up the inside faces of the 2 towers. And it's a base which is varied, it's patterned, it's got greenery growing out of the podium. So it's not an austere podium, and it's got that active base of retail and residential lobbies along that northern frontage. And finally, this is the corner of Thurza Street and Garth Close. Again, that big, hopefully cafe tenancy on that north-east corner. So a very active frontage, and you can see that strong architecture. We've designed the building to be passively sustainable. It's not walls of glass. It's a nice balance of wall to window and with big overhangs to control the summer sun. So it's designed to be a passive, sustainable building. So that's a summary of Building 4, and we welcome any questions.
Yep.
Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. I'll kick off with one. The size of the apartments generally, what would they be?
We provide a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and that. So
No 3s.
no 3s in this building. The other buildings, buildings 2 and 3, have quite a few of the larger apartments. The taller buildings, and the larger apartments are generally on the taller levels. So just so everyone heard, 57 square metre 1 bed, 85 square metre 2 beds generally, or thereabouts.
If you don't speak into this when you ask your question, the people at home won't hear. Is it about 50-50 with 1s and 2s, or is there a lot of 57 square metre apartments?
Typical floor plan is a typical floor plate is 7 units. So 3 of which are 1 bedroom apartments and 4 of which are 2 bedroom apartments. So
you can see that on the screen now. Yeah, more 2 beds than 1. So
Sorry, I'm being quick because we've got so much on tonight. I won't go into overshadowing and wind, but it is a bugbear when you get tall apartments. Have you checked the impact of wind on these things on the ground?
Absolutely. As part of lodging the DA, once we're over 25 metres height, which we are, or 19 metres height, we need wind testing and then wind assessment, then wind testing. And each building is tested. They make a model and put it in a wind tunnel. And where needed, we modify the design. And that's particularly on the rooftop levels of some of the other buildings, we've put extended screens, glass screens. So not just 1 metre glass, but it might go up to 1,500, so you can sit and be comfortable. And then on the public ground plane, we use awnings and building articulation to control the wind.
Oh, someone to be admitted. I wonder if the video is still working. Anyway,
I have one online question.
oh, good. Go for that.
Do the windows, I've got two online questions. First question is, will there be any children's playground or dog park facilities?
No, there is no playground nor dog park. And the reason being, although this isn't a Green Star accredited building, we are doing other Green Star residential buildings, and there's real benefits in not necessarily providing everything on site, but utilising then the amenities that are within the town centre. So I don't know where the dog park is nearby, but I know there are children's playgrounds within the vicinity. So it's about utilising the amenity that exists in the town centre and nearby.
Thanks. And secondly, do the windows have UPVC or the much poorer aluminium metal frames?
At this stage, we haven't selected the windows. We haven't done the energy ratings. We've got a passive sustainable design that's got a good balance of solar access, wall window ratio. Windows will be picked in due course, but not part of the DA.
Will the retail at the bottom be of a reasonable size? Because we're getting a lot of tiny retails that don't appear to be desirable.
The retail on the northeast corner, as shown on the screen, is just over 200 square metres. And look, we anticipate it could be too big and it might be subdivided into two. So.
Are you doing the wind testing after you've already built them or before? How are you going to do the wind testing?
We can't do we can't submit a development application without wind testing, and to do that they actually create a physical model of the building. I believe it's being done in Melbourne. Yep. So they don't do it in Canberra. So it's done in Melbourne and put in a wind tunnel. Which is underway now. Yeah. And all the data's recorded.
I just want to ask about the wind because, there's a big problem with wind in the town centre. Are you checking from the prevailing westerly winds? Because I have seen developments and wind studies and they don't do the prevailing westerly winds, which, is a bit odd.
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
I'll go on. No, it's it's an accredited assessor in Melbourne. Oh, Byron would like to say he's expert in wind.
Essentially what they do is they take the entire site. There is a significant amount of points. There might be 50 across the site, let's say, and they check each one of those points and they measure the rating. And we actually take into account all 4 buildings within our design. So we're not just factoring it in as building 4 by itself. We do acknowledge that we are surrounded by other buildings, including aviation to the north and Cirrus to the east, and those are factored in within that design and design modified appropriately to address those concerns.
Okay, thank you. Any questions out here? Caroline, microphone right next to you.
You've marked the mailroom in your plan. Is the mailroom accessible to the public? In other words, can people put flyers and things in there, or is it a totally gated community?
Sorry, I missed
Yeah,
some of that. It was a very character.
You can't
Yeah.
get into the letterbox.
Oh,
Yeah, can you get, yeah, that's the question. Is that a totally gated mailroom?
no. The reason we have with those mailboxes 2 doors is that the first doors are accessible by anyone, and the second doors are then on the fob for residents. So we just didn't want mailboxes out in the open where mail could drop on the ground or anything. So it's in a controlled environment but accessible.
Like Alexandra now.
Yes, by Doma as well. So that's worked well there.
Yeah.
Another online comment. What amenities are close by in the long term? Just bear that in mind, but also someone's mentioning that the local dog parks are, you know, well and truly, and the playgrounds are well and truly past their use by date, and Melbourne is not comparable to Canberra. So if you could
Well-
maybe just address the amenities that are close by that are useful.
Yeah, so in terms of the playgrounds and amenities, I think the important point is that this brings a lot more residents into the town centre. And that gives more support for improved amenities if there's concern about the quality of playgrounds. A town centre, you know, has a lot of public amenity. I'm not sure of all of them. I'm a resident of Belconnen, but not Woden. But that's the beauty of a development like this, that it can support all of the town centre amenities. The question about Melbourne, you know, we're not, this is a very Canberra development
Yeah.
and appropriate.
I think it's 7:32, beautiful. Now, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to say, lucky for you for all the amenity, the public amenity you've got in Belco, because if you can't think of the ones in Woden, it might be because they're just not here.
Well, again, with this strong mix of residential to support the office around it, you've got activity day and night and
Yeah,
population.
but there's more than that. There's public facilities that you need to have sites for, and if you sell all the sites, we'll talk about selling the sites. But if you sell all the sites and you demolish your community facilities and put towers on them, then you ain't got any sites for community facilities.
Fortunately, here it was a car park rather than a community facility.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Is that all right if we put that on our website?
Yeah, I think that's. We'll clarify, but yeah, we'll
That is
confirm with
fine.
Doma Group and let you know.
It's on Facebook Live anyway. Okay, thank you. So, all right, now let's see. We might need your technology though. Oh, look at that, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. That's so fantastic. Right. Is everybody happy online? Can you hear and everything? No, they're all muted. Oh, well,
Yes,
hopefully it's working.
Everything is fine, thanks.
All good, apparently. Okay, good. Right, now we're going to share the next one, which is the Southern Cross Club. Woohoo! Now I've got it here. Damn, I have got it. Oh, share screen. Oh, how did we do it before? Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I did. Oh, no, I'm just going to have to put them into. How did you do it before?
So
Hang on, let's see. Where did it go? Share. Where did they
share.
go?
that's okay. That's it. So now
Is that, whose is that? That's yours.
that's ours. Yeah.
Stop share. Get rid
No,
of
no,
it.
you don't need to stop sharing.
Okay, hang on. Let's go back again.
Hit share.
Share.
So now it's pulling up this. Where's the PDF?
Yeah.
Okay. No. Okay. Close that one.
Why is it?
It's
playing
behind there. That's the issue. It's actually just behind that.
Go into. Why won't it go into the
okay.
folder?
So the folder.
I can get, I'll get it. Sorry about this, Ian. Would you? All right, let's see how we go with that. Okay.
Yep.
All right, let's see how we go. I'm going to have to unhook something though, you know. All right, we're not having the mouse. Yeah. Yeah, all right. Now, what happened?
Yep,
so it's one of those. Is it that one? Oh, no mouse. All right. Open that. Why is this sharing business so bloody
That's
difficult?
fine. And then you'll be able to hit slideshow. One of these will-
Can you see that online? Yes? All right. Oh, that one there, down there. Can't we just press that little baby there?
There we go.
Is that working for everyone?
And where's page down if the thing's not?
No,
Oh, there, just do the arrow, see?
Thank you.
Is that working for you online?
no, Fiona.
Oh, it's not sharing?
No, it's sharing.
What can you see online?
Apparently nothing yet.
Nothing.
Yes, someone can
Won't
see it.
All right.
Someone's seeing it, so it must be out.
My
Penny,
screen's still black.
Penny,
Well, I don't know. I think we'll just.
can you see? Can you
Thanks,
see?
Fiona. Yes, good evening, everyone. My name's Ian Mackay, CEO of the Canberra Southern Cross Club. I've also got from the Canberra Southern Cross Club, Matthew Walsh, Chief Operating Officer, and down the back, Patrick Keogh, our General Manager of Special Projects. They will help me answer any particularly difficult questions. And if there's really difficult questions, we'll throw to Ian Cameron from the Hellenic Club. We're celebrating our 50th year. If you didn't already know that already, our birthday's in about 2 weeks' time. Pick up a magazine on the way out. There's lots of wonderful things happening. Fiona asked that I also give a quick update on what's happening at section 79 tonight. So that's at the end of the presentation, but predominantly wanted to talk about our master plan for this property and take you through where we're at and why we're doing what we're doing. So the master plan came from the Woden Town Centre master plan from 2015, and it identified the opportunity for residential and mixed development. And I know over the years since then, there's been lots of presentations of different developers and clubs looking to execute their plans based upon the Woden Town Centre master plan. It did enable an increased potential for scale at this club of up to 12 stories subject to leasing conditions. I think for once you might be pleased to hear that we have absolutely no intention of going up. What we were most interested in the Town Centre master plan and executing against was the potential for shared zones, building to the front of the property, as you just heard, trying to make sure we're active with the streetscape and really trying to get that pop-up and activation. And for us, it's also very important, as you can see, that's the old pedestrian crossing there. But to try and be a part of that Bradley Street precinct, rather than be seen as separate to it. So you might even notice little things. If Bradley Street puts lights up in their trees, we put lights up in our trees. If Bradley Street go greener, we go greener. We really want to be seen as very much part of that retail activation that is happening throughout Bradley Street. The other problem we had, and if those of you have remembered it, and it's good that we're in this room because this is only one of the 2 areas that we haven't upgraded yet, and it's functional, but it's looking very dated, and we're progressively working our way through, and this room is one we get to do. We weren't offering a contemporary customer offer. We'd suffered from a lack of investment for many, many years. And our venues, like a lot of clubs, are quite internally focused. Very little natural light coming in and not a lot of outdoor activation. And particularly through COVID is when we had that probable light bulb moment that we needed to do it differently and actually try and open up our offer and try and maximise the advantage we have of the outdoor spaces we have. This is one of the more difficult venues. Obviously at the Yacht Club, it's a lot easier for us to take that opportunity than it is for here. So we had 24 stages to our master plan back in 2015. We've actually worked our way through a great deal of them, and probably the 2 major areas that we haven't completed yet. And for those of you who come regularly, we tend to usually meet in the other rooms and that have been done. All the other function rooms have been completed, but this one hasn't. And this is a major part of still to be completed. And if you've ever been to any event here, nighttime or daytime, it suffers from a lack of natural light, and also it has a lot of that 1980s and 90s brown in it that we would like to perhaps be a little bit more modern and contemporary when we do get to this area to do up. So that was downstairs that you've just seen there, and we're in the middle of just completing item 5 at the moment, which is the gaming floor refurbishment, and that gaming floor refurbishment has enabled us to take 30 machines off the floor and give 10 of them back to government and put 20 of them in a way for the long term. Upstairs, you're in number 24 at the moment is where we're standing, and pretty much the rest of upstairs we've done, but there's a couple of areas still to do. So externally, the plan was originally to try and bring vitality and life of the club forward to the street and trying to, as I talked about, getting that shared zone between Bradley Street and the club site. Back in 2015, this is what the architects presented us with as concepts. We found them a little bit too confronting and perhaps gargantuan and not really doing what we hoped would occur. So we sat on that for a while, and then COVID came around and we asked them to have a think about doing perhaps something more simple, but also, I think in the brief we used the term an urban oasis, just somewhere where people could just come and sit and enjoy, eat their lunch and be surrounded by greenery rather than more structure. So this is what we hope it's going to look like. So the area is the club is the front part of the club where hopefully you know it well, it's on the right as you walk in. So basically taking that whole area right up until our store's driveway and turning it into what we hope is an urban oasis. Some planning to get through. We're hoping it's only about a $1.5 million project. And we were hoping originally to get it done by this summer. That's probably starting to look like a stretch now with a lot of the approvals that we need to get. But what we really liked about it, obviously, rather than immediately there's green in a town centre that is very lacking in green. Behind it is the disabled access ramp, and this plan, unlike the previous one, allows us to expand up into the club, but from the outside in, whereas previously, even with that beautiful big design, which was called the Grand Veranda, you had to come inside the club to go back onto it. We want people to approach us, subject to all the club licence rules, but we want it to be very accessible from the ground level, directly across the road from the rest of the retail activations. So there's some pretty pictures for the next 3 or 4 slides, but hopefully it gives you the idea of what we're trying to achieve. Lots of green and deliberately making it quite spaced out for customers so they can have their own spaces and feel as though they're surrounded by greenery rather than more tables and chairs. It's quite uncommon for what our club has traditionally done, which is to try and get as many seats and as many, therefore, covers that you can. For us, this is deliberately about trying to give people an area that they can relax outside in. It won't be particularly protected, so it's deliberately not going to work as well in very cold weather, but that's the outdoors. And as soon as we start playing with it not being the outdoors, we've just made the same mistake again. We're building something indoors, which we don't want to do. So there's a plan coming up on the right, but it is conceptual only, but you can start to see it's actually quite a big area, Matthew, about a few hundred square metres, 450 square metres. And currently it acts as a car park for 4 management cars and an extension of a tarmac drive-through. I mean, it doesn't actually do anything at the moment. And it's a bit of an opportunity, obviously, to soften the club from the exterior as well. And then the last one. So I might, sorry, one more. And this one actually shows how we're building back into the club. So that presumes we're able to put an internal lift in for disabled access, and it enables us then to have a terraced area up to the top level of the existing windows of the club. And as I said, it's looking at it from the outside in rather than what we've traditionally done is start from the inside and then try and look outwards. So that's what we're hoping to get to once we've worked out what to do with the ramp, and that would be a couple of years away on the presumption that hopefully the initial trial of what we're hoping to build early in the next year works for us.
Brilliant.
Yes,
We'll take, you got to use this.
Yep.
Does it connect to the inside, like at level, at grade?
It will connect when we go to this. Yeah, it'll connect originally via this disabled ramp. And then when we build this, we'll also be able to connect through doors through the terracing.
Thanks, Ian. Will this be part of the Woden Central in terms of your food and drink, or you're just going to have a little chips and drink sort of on the outside sort of thing?
In the initial sense, it'll be a more limited menu because we'll have to run food from that kitchen. We'll have a small container, but probably drinks bar, but probably serving coffee and cake and muffins in the morning for people walking past on their way to work. But it pretty much is a extension of Woden Central with hopefully all the menu items predominantly, and it's very popular here already for us, and I presume the same at Hellenic as well and other restaurants, is the Beacon Me and You QR code ordering system. So you order from your table, it gets brought to you by staff. It's already making up a healthy percentage of how we sell our products at the moment. And the further you get away from service points, the more popular it becomes.
Any online ones? No. Any other questions? Oh, right.
Great.
Yeah, I think it looks great.
Thanks, Fiona.
Yeah.
I thought you'd like it.
I really love the Albi, and it's like got a similar thing, you know, you can, I mean, on nice sunny days, you can go and sit out there, and then, but you know, when it's the depth of winter, you sort of retreat in, yeah.
And we've got plenty of places to retreat into, believe me. So we set ourselves for this summer, before Christmas. It was probably a little ambitious. We're doing it at 3 venues at once. So we're doing Pat's leading a laneway activation at Tuggeranong, if you know that venue between the basketball stadium and the club. There's a laneway, and we're hoping to activate that into a summer bar. And then at Jamison, it's an easier challenge for us because we've already got a lawn area that's part of the club premises, so we don't have any licensing issues and the like. So we've got a few permits to get. Matthew, I'm going to put you.
Wow.
But it'll be, I won't say a miracle, Martin, but that's ambitious.
In terms of all the vegetation, are you getting? In terms of all the
Yes.
vegetation, is it going to be species for the climate of the future, i.e. definitely hotter and floods and droughts?
We'll make sure it is. I mean, I hope they are artists' impressions in the best designs that you see. We'll get climate appropriate vegetation.
All right. So in the good old days, in the 70s, I used to be able to walk through Phillip from pub to pub, and it was great. So now I'll be able to do the same thing. I'll be able to go from here to the deck on number 10 and to the Albi, and hopefully I'll be able to go somewhere at the Hellenic Club that's outside. Anyway, we'll see.
So that's yeah, look, I think as you're hearing from many things and coming to these meetings, the feedback is we need more green in the town centre, and especially if we can get more sunny green.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to deliver.
Brilliant. You going
79?
to go on a little
Yep.
bit longer?
Do you want to go to 79?
Yeah.
79?
We go to 79.
So this is totally separate. And ooh, what have you done here, Fiona? Here we go. Can I just click the X? So section 79, and many of you will know a longer history than I do of section 79, which is the block of land that Stella Canberra is now on. And I've got a map of it in a minute. But we came in 2018, so 4 years ago, and presented the proposed territory plan variation that we wanted to make for section 79. and the intention to complete the site investigation, prepare a draft planning report, investigate the development controls as part of the process. So we went through that, and just to give you, there's a pop-up of the participants, Fiona, and I don't want to close it down because I'm worried I'll. Can you just, is that just closable down? Yeah, here we go. That's the right slide. Good day. So this is the block. So it's surrounded almost fully in the red circle, but at the very top end next to Canberra College is Stella Canberra, the health and wellness centre that we operate at the moment with the swimming centre, which was opened by Caroline all those years ago. So it's nearly 5 years old. In fact, it is March 2018. No, it's nearly 5 years old. And we opened that first always with the intention of not quite knowing what we would do with the rest of the block. We progressed through 2018 and then into 2019, we came back to the Community Council, which I think is the next slide. Great. No, it's not. We did all the investigation studies and the massing for the site per the town centre master plan, parking, traffic, environmental factors, ecology and engineering services. Yes, please. There we go. And then we came back again in February 2019 and presented the draft plan. And for those of you that came to that meeting, you might remember that image. And the feedback we got, and please, on the right is, I think it's called by the planners a massing plan, which basically shows the buildings you can fit on the block of land. And what we heard, and I think to the meeting a lot of our members came to, so they were particularly concerned about parking at Stella because they were existing members of Stella, traffic around the town centre, providing provisions for active travel, and that was something we didn't get quite right. Was working closely enough with Pedal Power in particular when we opened Stella Canberra, making sure there was diverse housing and potential for community facilities at the site. And you might remember back at that meeting, I think it was where we suggested it could be a potential place for an indoor sporting stadium, but I think you had your eyes on better options than that.
Well, you know, maybe.
Possibly. So we promised to maintain the parking. We didn't feel as though traffic around the town centre was particularly a concern because promotion of active travel, the future light rail, and also that access to the site is proposed to be off Yamba Drive. We will work better with particularly Pedal Power next time around. We made a couple of mistakes that we had to try and undo afterwards when we built Stella. And they are typical, I won't say, how am I going to say this? They're typical speak that I hear a lot when I come to these presentations, that we said we will consider in future the type of housing topologies. And we also committed that part of the site would be retained by the club for further development as community facilities. And admittedly, it was in our mind that that could be a thing such as an indoor sporting stadium. It has probably now more gone towards that affordable housing build to rent model that you're hearing so much about in the press and a lot of developers talking about at the moment. It seems to be everybody's clawing to get into it, but the government is very keen to promote it. So yep, we're on that bandwagon as well. So where are we at now 4 long years later? It's still being considered, but we believe a draft variation is close. If that's correct, and if it's supported by government, there'll be a round of community consultation that will follow that. Following this, if approved, we'll look for partners to work with us in the retained portion of the block. And way back at that first map, you might have remembered there was a dotted line, but what is effectively the overflow car park of Stella Canberra, for those that know the site reasonably well, is the retained portion of the block that we would like to keep and do something in partnership with another community partner with. And then our board will consider concurrently the options for the remainder of the block. But if you go back up to that first image, you would presume there will be a development of housing on that site, similar in style. I think it's the oaks on one side. And the stacking is, we're allowed, I think, 16 at the Yarra Glen corner. And then it goes 14, 12, 10, 8, and I think Stella's down to 4. So it's a sort of steepled down as you move closer towards the town centre. But at its highest point, it's 16 stories, which is at the corner closest to the big Yarra Glen roundabout. Yeah, so if you go back to that, if you go, yes, if it's approved. So that picture there, so the very far left yellow one is the would be the notional block at the Yarra Glen corner, and that would be at a height of 16 stories. And then it comes down, I'm pretty sure it comes down by 2 stories as you move down the block closer to Stella Canberra, closer to the town centre. So I think it's something like 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, and Stella's 4. I might have got a little 2 number in there somewhere, but I know it starts at 16 and ends at 4 at Stella.
I have a question about green space for public use on that site.
So we don't know what we're doing yet. So it's hard to comment on what the green space will be. But as I said, we originally proffered up indoor sport, and then we've wavered more towards build to rent because it is a bit of a flavour of the month with government. So it's very difficult for me to comment on until we actually know what we're going to do.
Is the tram a known quantity in this space?
It's not a known quantity, but there is a planning presumption around it.
Just try and use the little microphone hanging off the side is for the people online.
Now, I assume the planning presumption around the tram would be the current existing drainage system, which I think the tram system is due to go down.
I'm actually not able to comment on that. Patrick is nodding.
Okay,
yeah.
I just had another question. I guess would there be connectivity between that precinct and Irving Street where Oaks is at the moment, i.e. a road across the drainage?
Can I take that on notice? Because I, to be quite honest, I don't think that level of, because all we've got to is to get a territory plan variation. I don't think that level of planning has occurred, but if I can take it on notice, I can give it back to Fiona, who can put the answer on the Facebook page. Or...
I'll just add to that. So how would you service the site? How would you access the site? Is probably...
So the plan is for ingress and egress from Yamba Drive. And that's an interesting outcome because when we built Stella, for those of you who had any interest at the time, we had to pay for a road to be built off Launceston through Canberra College because we couldn't get access off Yamba. And now the view is we can get access off Yamba. Yes, Caroline.
Is it possible that any of the buildings could be shifted around to have more northerly aspect? Because they seem to have north at their short ends, not their long.
I honestly don't know the answer to that, but all I know is it was presented and called a massing study. Whether that means that the footprint is exactly as it seems or whether it could be moved around, I'll find out.
Sporting facilities, 2 comments about sporting facilities with the growing population.
Couldn't agree more. It's one of my favourite topics to talk about, and at another time, because I know we've done it before, but we own the Tuggeranong Southern Cross Stadium, and it's very difficult for a club that is having its traditional source of revenue removed to continue to spend enormous money on ensuring that we present great community sporting facilities. It's a real challenge. But there's been a couple of meetings on those topics already. But yeah, if clubs are the provider of the community sporting facility and the traditional way they funded that is being removed, they sort of need some help elsewise. And certainly through being able to diversify income streams helps that, but it's why Hellenic and us and other clubs in the area are trying to do things to ensure their future and their ability to support the community.
back. Can you just ask one while we're moving up there? Is does the draft variation to the territory plan do anything apart from set the building heights? Like what is that? Because that's law.
Come on, Fiona. I didn't bring, in fact, we might as well just ask the planners here. Then I'd be worried I would say something and then it to be
that's okay.
horribly wrong. I think it does provide a dwelling number as, a notional number of dwellings. Yeah, but I'm sorry, my expertise doesn't go much further than that. I think it's heights, building heights. You look as though you know something. You're smiling. Do you know? No. Oh, Dan's smiling as well. Yeah, but I think dwelling numbers and certainly building heights are the two things that I know that were on the document.
Katie.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for your transparency, and I appreciate the challenges around doing an assessment on community facilities and what's viable on both ends. But what I was wondering is, would you consider community consultation of what facility would be of benefit rather than just a government's flavour of month per se?
Yes, and we would do it again. It's what we genuinely did back in 2019, and we came with what we thought was a strong opportunity to help with the indoor stadium situation in the Woden area. And we left with a tail between our legs a bit, because I think, and if you don't mind me verbaling you, but Fiona had bigger plans. Fiona wanted a better site than we were able to offer.
Yeah, I'm just thinking also.
It's not connected, it's good for residential. I think it's great for residential, but as far as being connected to, like for an indoor sports stadium, I don't know. That is just my view. I think there are better sites that are more central, that are more where people want to hang out and can better support the cafes and the restaurants and the shops.
Yeah. I whether it's a hall or something else, I think community will be able to share, but I think there might be a gap within Woden for, PG entertainment facilities for families to gather around and engage within. So it could be a bowling alley.
How about we do a consultation piece around how we can provide more entertainment options? And I think you've got two very big clubs at either end of the town centre, and Ian's updating on his plans later on that does have more entertainment options, and it is incumbent upon both of us to provide those to the communities that we service. So we will run a community consultation session around what we can do better, and if Ian wants to do it with us, we can do it both at once and get the community's views.
What we actually need is a plan for the town centre that considers all the objectives that we want, that considers the outcomes, that considers the options to get there, and considers what we would have where. So it all hangs together properly. We just can't say this side or that side for this or that, because it's all just so piecemeal. That's what our fundamental gripe is, that everything is so piecemeal and nothing hangs together. And the CIT is a classic on this one.
This was discussed a few months ago, and I remember it very well. And we've got a lucky opportunity, is that because we're a not-for-profit community club, we don't have to be as selfish as that. And I remembered seeing maybe people who run a shopping centre present, and it was all about them, which I suppose it's their job to do that. But we have the opportunity to be a little bit more open-minded than that, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Another.
As to the residential buildings, the myriads of units you're going to probably put in this place, are these all for purchase, or are Southern Cross going to keep a proportion and make them available rental-wise, maybe to the poorer parts of the community of which I belong to? Because there's a 3 to 5 year list just for priority housing and 10 to 15 year lists for a general housing. And I'm currently paying like 80% of my pension just to live in a private two-bedroom butter box over at Mawson, which I am basically facing until my money runs out and I have to bludge off my children, unfortunately. And I mean, I wish I was in the area where I could take a mortgage out, but because I'm a retiree on a pension, I'm not allowed to take a mortgage out because the government can't get tax off us. So is there anybody in the community, other than the pittance that the government's putting into housing, to increase the viability of poorer people being able to rent? Are you, Southern Cross, not for profit, going to retain some and rent them out to the poorer parts of the community?
So that is the idea currently of the two green bits.
The two green ones.
The two green ones.
They're
About
for rental.
140, I think, would be what they call this build to rent model, where it is affordable housing provided for those in the community that are unable to buy.
So when you say build to rent, you're building them to rent them.
Correct.
Southern Cross. So they'll be part of your income.
A community housing partner. We would join forces with a
Right.
community housing partner that currently already does this in this market and work with them to do that.
And would they stay in that range that I'm talking about?
In
Like
terms of-
$425 to $500 around my way for a little two-bedroom places?
I'm sorry, I don't know, but I can find out from our partner what.
Because that's not affordable for poor people to do.
I can find out what when we call it, because we are working with a community housing partner, what they call affordable. It was a question that was asked about the cost in the last presentation. Yes, affordable to one person may not be to another. I understand that. So we'll find that one out as well if you can remind me what I promised to follow up with.
Because being in the private rental market is really scary, because from lease to lease, 12 months to 12 months, you don't know if you're going to be thrown on the street. And as a pensioner, you wouldn't believe how hard it is to tick everybody's boxes to find another place.
Yeah.
And that really frightens me. And I'm not the only one in that state. I wish it wasn't. I have enough to go and put a mortgage on a place, but the government won't allow me to do it because I'm a retiree. And I think that's wrong too. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Just a couple more things online.
Okay.
Someone's worried about the access. Is it going to be off Yamba Drive, and how does that affect the tram or vice versa? And secondly, there's a couple of questions about the pool not being big enough.
Okay, so first one, ingress egress off Yamba, have absolutely no idea how it would impact light rail, but that's because I don't know enough about light rail, but I'm certain that our planners would ensure that they were integrated because they will do that. So I'm not too concerned that there'll be a conflict there. The pool. We've talked a lot about the pool before at meetings like this and at our member sessions. We originally planned Stella without a pool. Our members asked for it. It cost us $1.5 million to build. We made it as big as we could, which was 16.67 metres. I agree, we all wish it was 25 or 50 metres. It isn't. We did what we could afford to do at the time, and there is no plan to make it bigger, but we know it bears quite a heavy load because it's a swim school, a members access pool for laps and walking, and also it does some quasi hydrotherapy and aqua exercise, and it's very, very busy. But through a range of a chain of events, it's become far more of a focus point than it was ever intended. It was always intended to just be a swim school and some time for members to have a paddle, and it's being asked to do a lot more than that now.
Thank you. We want an aquatic centre too, so you don't have that.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. There's an old rundown. Yes. And as I think I did at the meeting 2 months ago, I said we did look at it, but it's very hard to justify investing in, unfortunately. Yeah, which is probably why the current owner isn't doing so.
Yeah. Well, with the ice skating moving and he loses that that financial viability, that base. Anyway, thank you, Ian. That's terrific. And I think your outdoor dining looks lovely.
Thank you.
I look forward to sitting in it. Oh, can we do that? Yeah. All right, Dan and Jacqueline. I'm going to share with us the updated plans for the Hellenic Club master. Oh, careful, cords down there. And they did come a couple of months ago.
Yes.
And now they're back with an updated plan. And is everybody online okay? We'll take that as a yes, eh?
Thank you, Fiona. As Fiona mentioned, my name's Dan. I'm a director at Purdon Planning, and along with Ian Cameron from the Hellenic Club, Peter from Intellectual Property, and my colleagues Jenny and Jin, we came several months ago and did a presentation on our concept master plan. Since that time, our project team has expanded considerably, in large part to go through a lot of the comments, questions, concerns and issues that were raised by yourselves, but also in response to the comments that we received from the National Capital Design Review Panel. So since our last meeting, our last presentation, we've engaged Fender Katsoulides as the lead architect on the project, and Jacqueline will do the bulk of the talking momentarily. But we've also got Peter from Oculus, who are our landscape architects, and Chris from Stantec, who's a traffic engineer. And traffic and parking were obviously a couple of key issues last time we presented. So what I'll do is hand over to Jacqueline, run through the presentation and give you a series of updates on where the project's evolved to over the last few months, and look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Dan. So thanks everybody for joining us this evening. We're really excited to bring you the updates for the community consultation on the Hellenic precinct. I'm just going to scroll through the presentation, and Fiona has asked me to sort of go very quickly as well. So I will try and stop on the key points. Just might make sure you can see the full presentation. So once again, we are looking. Yeah, I think it's
Oh, no, not that far right. I'm right of the 40.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's goes a little. Can you see? Yeah. So we have used the always with our designs, we are designing to code and to the EPSDD requirements, but also in this case, the Woden Valley Master Plan. And part of that master plan really supports the vision that the Hellenic Club are looking to expand their sort of offering to the community in this location. And I'm sure that you're all very familiar with the site. And we have the existing club, which is over on the east side, and currently an existing car park, which is on the west. And it's this area on the west that we are looking to provide a greater amount of community and development to this area to sort of supplement the entertainment precinct that the club is currently offering. So just looking around the site and at all sort of four corners, we're just showing the imagery there just to remind you of the existing conditions of the club and just the opportunities that are there to really improve the street interfaces. So one of the comments that had come back from the NCDRP panel was to ensure that we were having really great permeability on the site, really good connections into the precinct, and the ability to be able to pass through as a pedestrian very easily, and not to prioritise sort of vehicular traffic. So the site itself is surrounded by sort of really a mix of development, and we're also going to be offering a mix of uses on this site as well. And we're really looking to supplement the open space that's sort of around the site by bringing people into the centre of the site, which I'll be expanding on through the presentation. One of the challenges of the site is the road hierarchy and the street network around the site. There is in the sort of the master plan a potential new street that's going to come between or south of Matilda into the development to the site to the south, and maybe that's going to be spoken about later on this evening. But really we're surrounded by Launceston, Callum, Matilda and Bowes, and it's really Bowes and Matilda that are offering us the ability to access our site. We're not allowed to put any sort of driveways on Launceston. And as you know, Callum Street will be accommodating the new light rail. And so we also won't be permitted to have any sort of not only driveways, but also access off Callum Street will be restricted. So when we start to look at the Hellenic precinct itself, the club has a really wonderful vision to just provide a lot more entertainment and community services to the area. And part of that is having the ability to provide an auditorium, which will be approximately 2,000 square metres. And that's going to be able to hold a range of different events. So it's a really multi-use auditorium, sporting events, talks, dancing, lots of events, and also open to all diverse communities. There's also going to be a hotel on the site. I think the hotel is 12 stories, and it's going to accommodate 150 hotel rooms for the precinct and, you know, for people coming to Woden. And part of the precinct is also going to be a health and wellness offering. So there's quite a lot of area that's given over to health and wellness and sort of ancillary services that support that use. On the precinct as well, there's going to be a office building. That office building is proposed to go to 16 stories. And it's situated on the southeast corner of the site. And I'll be able to talk a little bit more about that later on. But obviously it's going to provide a lot more people to the area, and bringing people to the area means an increase in amenity, an increase in activation, and people, you know, providing a lot more sort of patronage to the food and beverage offerings around the precinct and around Woden. So we really see this place as a opportunity for lots of people and activity, dining opportunities as well. And central to the theme of the scheme is a central space, which is in between the buildings that we're calling the Agora. So for those of you that know about Greek architecture and the history of Greek architecture, the Agora is the traditional Greek name for the gathering space or the marketplace. And what we're trying to sort of build on that theme here is that a lot of our sort of activation and ground plane will occur in the Agora. So that there'll be lots of connections through the site, a lot of permeability to be able to walk through. And there's also, there's sort of no back to the site. So there's going to be activation around the street edge, but also within. And all that will be open to the public as well. So when we just look at the arrangement in a little bit more detail, here's a diagram of the building arrangement. So on the southeast corner, we have the office building here, and that's the 16-story building. So since the last scheme, that building actually has been reorientated. So it runs in a north-south axis. And the idea of that is that it will create less overshadowing to the block and to the south, and also a new linear park that is proposed to go in just on the south side of Matilda Street. We also have the auditorium shown there in pink, which is facing Launceston Street and really becomes the arrival point for sort of vehicular traffic coming down Bowes Street. We have the hotel then just in between the existing club and the auditorium. And then, as I mentioned before, we have the Agora sort of central in that space. And what's really sort of special about the Agora is that we are looking at this space as an all year round weather protected space. So whether it would be in summer or in winter, we're looking to put a glazed roof over the agora. So it would be probably about 4 stories high. So you still get this feeling of being out in the open air. But you're always going to be weather protected, and that's then from, you know, the hot sun, but also the winds and the rain, to make it a really usable space. So this is just the same information again, just in plan diagram, just to help get your bearings for where the sort of key features of the new plan, how it all sits together, and how it's all sort of arranged on each corner. And then, of course, there is a little bit of work with the interface of the existing club, but largely all the work is on the existing sort of car park area. So if I look at the ground plane in a little bit more detail, you can start to see that there's actually quite a bit happening, but a lot of the spaces are sort of the breakup of all the different tenancies. And we have a European quarter, we have a Latin quarter, we have an Asian quarter, and then sort of the club itself as well. So there'll be lots of sort of different offerings of food and beverage, and then lots of permeability and laneways coming in to that central space. So we're really trying to activate Callum Street as well, because the light rail will be coming past here. So we've got going to have a new opening, which is just here, from Callum Street through the existing club and into the central space, and that will sort of help activate Callum Street, and also some community space and a small sort of retail coffee shop fronting Callum Street as well, just for improved activation on that interface. And then we'll just go through in a bit more detail some of the key aspects of the ground plane. So the main entry of vehicles is coming in from Bow Street, and they come in through a porte cochere and drop-off area. And from that porte cochere and drop-off area, you can go back out to separate parking, or you can take a ramp directly down. One of the key features is that with a precinct like this, it requires a really large back of house. And what we've been working with the club really hard to do is to get all the back of house and all the loading underground, so that we don't have any, well, as less as possible sort of back of house, blank walls, garage doors, loading areas around the perimeter. We are really trying to get that underground. The existing, just down here on the corner here, the existing loading will be retained to serve the existing club, but otherwise everything else we're trying to get underground. The only items, or the only sort of servicing areas, will be ones that authorities demand, like substations and water meter rooms will still be above ground, but large loading will be under, which includes waste collection. So the car park entry is currently proposed off Matilda Street. So we have a number of lanes in and out on Matilda Street, and we also have a sort of express lane which comes in from the central porte cochere area. So you can drop somebody off. Maybe you're coming there with an elderly parent, and you can drop them off right at the front door and then just go directly down into the car park. The office entry is on the corner there, and that sort of really has a close proximity to the sort of office buildings which are across the street on Bowes. So we're just trying to sort of maintain that sort of commercial office precinct. And then, as I spoke about, we have a number of eat streets, what we're calling eat streets, which is these, some are open to sky and some are undercover. Laneways that come through and have lots of opportunity for sort of food and beverage, and spill out space for chairs and tables as well, to activate the whole area. And then we have that central agora space, which you can see really sort of taking that centre place. And we're just now starting to work with our landscape architects, Oculus, and these plans haven't had that sort of I guess engagement yet with all of the sort of planting, and that's why you can't sort of see the greenery yet. but we are imagining that this space will also be have plants and we'll be retaining a lot of the perimeter trees as well around the precinct. So central to the Agora space, we have a sort of circulation node, which we're calling the Temenos. And what that is really a central circulation point, which is lifts and escalators. And I was talking with the club today and potentially more stairs as well. Just a really sort of clear central point that people can come in and whether they're coming in as a pedestrian or coming into the basement car parking, but a really central point where they can easily find their way and circulate, because there are so many different activities and different places to go and spend time. That this will be a central sort of meeting point. It'll be lit up as well, and it'll sort of be its own sort of structure within that space. And so really clear to help the wayfinding of this area. So from the Temenos, you can access the auditorium, you can access the hotel, the entertainment areas in the existing club, which they're looking to remodel the housey areas and add in Kingpin as well. Also children's play areas in the entertainment area. Lots of food and beverage as well to support the patrons that are coming to visit for the auditorium. So really it becomes a really sort of easy way to navigate around the precinct. So if we just go into the plans in a bit more detail, there's going to be a proposal for 4 basements in this at the precinct. As you can see, the basement just takes up sort of half of the site because we have the existing club being retained in the and potentially that will be looked at in later stages. But for the moment, we're trying to really ensure that we have a really clear circulation for all the patrons in the basement, and looking at between about 700 and 800 cars. We also have express ramps, and once again, we're aiming to bring the escalators and lifts all the way down to the basement. So it's a really easy journey up for everybody up into the precinct. And then just going back to ground, just to get our bearings, and then we go to level 1. And then you can start to really see all of these colours represent a different use. So we have, I won't run through them all because I'll be here for a while, but mainly we have, the wellness, we have the hotel, we have the office, we have all the entertainment areas, and then really sort of clear circulation, and everybody sort of trying to either have views to the outside, good daylight, good access, natural ventilation, but also views inside as well to the Agora space, and to still always be sort of connected to that central activity zone. Then as we go up, we come to either the auditorium on the northern side or the office on the south side. So this is just the office podium, and the auditorium would probably be the equivalent of sort of two or three stories. It's up on level 2 so that we can provide a column-free space, and it would have trusses over the top, so to enable no columns in that space, and then a real opportunity for a multitude of different uses, and then it's supported by that area in grey, which is sort of all the back of house, the amenities, etc., loading as well for that auditorium space. So we see the auditorium space, because it's on the north as well, it wouldn't just be sort of a closed room like this. It would actually have glazing, opportunity for natural day lighting, and depending on what the function is or the event is, there's also the views to outside as well. From this area, you'd be able to see across to the Oval and all that sort of open space. Then as we go up, much the same, again, because we have the high sort of volume of space, but we also introduce a childcare to sort of offering to the office building as well, and that's just to the south. And we're just looking to see how that would work in terms of its access, if it's more part of the office access area, or whether it is has its own lifts and its own circulation. but that childcare would be for the public as well. You don't have to be working in this precinct to access the childcare. You can also start to see the hotel now taking shape as well. The hotel rooms running either side of the corridor, so it's sort of quite a simple plan. And then that's sort of the roof area as well of the agora, which sits up sort of quite high. And then as we go up the upper levels, it sort of just continues up through. And then above the hotel, we have sort of the hotel amenity offering that is outdoor. So at the moment, we just have sort of a pool and roof garden and pavilion area. And then you can see the office tower goes up all the way up to level 15, which is the equivalent of 16 stories with the ground floor. So just to give you an idea of the scale of the proposal, this is a section cut through the office tower. Our vehicle entry comes in under the office tower, so that's why you can see it's sort of just hovering in midair. We have a really sort of grand entry. It's probably the equivalent of three sort of stories or 3 high stories. And we see all of that sort of entry space all being really planted and really sort of open and inviting, and a real sort of also opportunities for sort of billboards or for the club as well to be able to sort of have, you know, special lighting, which I think they're sort of already doing now, but to bring people in from Bow Street to really attract patrons at night. Then you see the temenos in the centre, and then you can see also the existing club building as well. And then if we just run a section through the other way, you can see the 12-storey high hotel here. And then we come down to the sort of temenos and agora area. And then once again, a section through the office building. And obviously, depending on how the section is taken, but the office building has really, as I said, it's reorientated north-south, and it's sort of quite a thin, long floor plate to help with the overshadowing to the south. So just looking around at inspiration for the club, we're really excited to sort of look at 40 years of history of the club and sort of take what sort of underpinned its sort of origins, and to bring that into sort of the future, and share that vision with the club to sort of find themes in 3,000 years of Hellenic architecture, and create something which is really robust and durable and into the future. And I think something to keep in mind about the precinct is that this is not a developer that is looking to sell something and then pass it on. This is the actual, members that have a longevity with the club and ongoing, that want to create something really, really special. And they have a vision, but they're also they care about what happens and how the club goes into the future. So that they're looking at really high quality outcomes, and have asked us, or part of the brief was to bring that sort of Hellenic theme into a contemporary language, and still using sort of columns and motifs and building forms established from Hellenic architecture, but bringing them into a design that is really sort of elegant and sophisticated, and will take them through without sort of getting sort of dated in 5 years' time. So that's what our sort of next steps are, is that we're looking at all the facade treatment and coming up with sort of the design. So this is some massing. I think we heard the word earlier today as well. So this is just a view from Launceston Street, and you can see the auditorium here, and we've got the office tower in the background, and the hotel building fronting Launceston Street as well. and looking to sort of sit the building in a sort of a perimeter of greenery, and then bringing that sort of greenery through into the Agora space. From Callum Street, we have the existing club here in the foreground, and then we can sort of see the new development, which is sort of on each of those corners. And then Matilda Street, looking from the south, was really important for us to make sure that we have space between the buildings as well, and that's why they're sort of set further apart. And this is where we've also got, I guess, the bike path, and some new works will be proposed to sort of beautify the streetscape. And then just finishing on the Agora space, just to give you sort of a really high level idea of how this space might work. The club has plans to bring in a stage into this space as well, so that there can be public events and different entertainment opportunities. And you can see as well, just that space is actually really quite large, central to those buildings on each side. And this gives you an idea of just the height as well of the roof. So even though we are inside and undercover and protected, it's still that feeling of outdoor space and landscape and vegetation, and a lot of activity going on. So this is the last slide. I think I'm not sure if anybody else has anything that you wanted to add, but I think I've covered it.
Thank you. I guess we'll get on with the questions. shall we?
Sure.
You probably need that for the questions. So, well, Maria up the back was pretty quick with the hand up. So if we use the microphones, because as I say, then the people online should be able to hear. Seems to be working all right.
Thank you. I think it's definitely come a long way since the last presentation. So that's really, really good. I have questions about the green space and about the Agora. Just looking at that image there, I was just sort of wondering in winter, I just wonder where the location it is in the middle of the complex, whether it's actually going to get any winter sun. And also I noticed that I'd like to know a bit more about the laneways, because I think you mentioned that some are going to be open to the sky and some are not. So it'd be good to understand better what they are, and also with the orientation of the laneways, whether they're going to get any winter sun, access to winter sun. And also the Southern Cross Club in their presentation showed that they're taking advantage of the northern side of the site to have outdoor dining. But the opportunity seems to be missed with this, because on Launceston Street, it just seems to be the auditorium and maybe a rooftop garden on the hotel. So I wondered, are there any opportunities to do something on the northern side with the auditorium, even if there are outdoor terraces or something with the auditorium, or something that to take advantage of the winter sun?
Yeah, thank you. It is a really good question, and these are design considerations that we've been working through as well. So I've just brought up again the ground floor plane. So on the north area here, we have these food and beverage offerings there, and also I guess a little bit on the side as well. So the idea of putting the restaurants and cafes here is that they can all be like double-sided. So you'll have the sort of laneway area and access, which provides the permeability sort of coming through here. So people from the office might come through for lunch, and they might come through this access way here, and they can access these tenancies. But at the same time, these tenancies can spill out onto that sort of Launceston frontage as well. I guess in one way we were sort of mindful of the traffic and the cars. But we also agree that having that sort of winter sun and sitting in the sun and having a coffee or a bite to eat is so enjoyable. So that's why we sort of have these sort of corners as well, and we set back the building to enable that to happen. The connection that comes in directly from Launceston Street, it is while it's under the auditorium, it's quite high, so it's a double story. floor to floor level. So it's at least 5 meters up. So you will get some sort of sun penetration that comes in through that area. And then to the south here, we do have this area here open to sky. But we're still going through and testing all of our sunlight into the agora. But it is a tricky one because of the built form that's sort of all around it. Winter sun will probably be sort of quite difficult to get into that space. But from, spring and summer when the sun is higher, there is an opportunity that the sun does hit that agora space. Oh, sorry, do you want me Peter's just going to add something. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought it might be good just to talk about vegetation, I guess, because obviously that's a key component to what we're trying to propose here. So we're just at the beginning, we're engaging and starting to work with the design team and the client to kind of figure out how, looking at the light studies essentially to see what we actually achieve within the central space. And then I think it'll be going through a refinement piece where we start to look at what species can be proposed within a central space, and then looking at an ongoing kind of maintenance scheme that goes with it to make sure that they can survive within an internal enclosed space or partially enclosed space. So I think that's part of our design thinking moving forward to make sure that we get something that is viable and something that will be able to work in the long run and not something that can potentially fail at the get-go. So it's a whole part of our ongoing kind of concept design thinking at the moment, but looking forward to it.
Our first presentation was what is going to be an office building being turned into residential because of lack of office. You're proposing a very large office. What likelihood is it that that will be an office?
Oh, I might get some help from you,
That's
Dan.
probably a Dan.
Look, as far as the club's concerned, the overarching design is to have office in that space. It's been shown through the analysis done to date that it will create the most activity. It'll support the broader club and the other uses on a Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. And then, of course, all the supplementary uses that go with a lot of those people staying back, or they reside in the broader community. So the club is absolutely committed to the office scheme.
I'll just add to that. Let's add to that as well. Also with the office, the office is going to be what's called PCA grade. So it's going to be a sort of a high premium class of office. And also in a post-COVID world, we would be looking at very carefully the number of lifts that are coming in the building. We'd be looking at natural ventilation and openable windows, opportunity for that as well in the building. And just ensuring that our ratios when we do our fit out of our desks and where, how many desks and everything, that it's got the space to have sort of more spacious or government approved ratios as well.
Online question about time frame.
Oh, that's probably maybe a question for you, Dan.
So at this stage, we're hoping to have the DA lodged before the end of the year. The assessment process, including the public notification, feedback, responding to queries and requests for supplementary information from planning is likely to take 6 to 12 months based on current timelines. We would hope to have an approval in place by the end of next year, let's say. And then we're looking at a variety of staging options that the club will work through to ensure that we can tie in with the other activities that are going on within the broader town centre, and particularly the development to the south that you're about to hear about. Sorry.
And so I think also the existing club maintaining operations as well, actually, throughout.
There's one person very concerned about whether these all three presentations actually will be available to the public widely as of after tonight.
I can put that up?
Yep.
Okay, brilliant. Will there be much greenery on the actual ground floor, or are you going to put it, is it going to be more internalized? That's just, these are some of the things when you design, around outside, so we can actually see it from ground level as we walk along.
That's a very good question. And look, we always look to activate ground floor and the interface with the street just to make sure that we're providing our best base, I guess, at pedestrian level, because that's what we're engaging with. So we'll be definitely looking at enhancements within the streetscape so that pedestrians can walk through.
Can I add to that? The reorientation of the office building and the additional access points at all four sides of the site were several of the really significant comments that came out of our last presentation. So what we've really tried to do, and I think FK, Jacqueline and her team have done a wonderful job, is really activate Matilda, and we're designing in a really elegant interface between this new development and of course the linear park that's running east-west on the opposite side of the road.
And what about Bow Street?
Bow Street, well, of course, we had to get access to the site somehow. The existing driveways are already coming in off Bows. So we've got the driveways are more or less, well, I won't say more or less, close to where they are now. And then, of course, Jacqueline's already mentioned the additional, the tenancies that will be available along the street. But of course, there'll be street trees and plantings the whole way through.
It's just an observation, probably just, outside of this context that, you've got some activation on Callum Street, and it's sort of some of the things I've seen lately, and we did have a presentation with the it was Major Projects Canberra and the CIT, and they talk about the heart of Woden being around where the bus and the light rail terminus is, and it's sort of a bit of a concern that we don't even know where the heart of Woden is and that it's moving, and there's this desire to activate Callum Street rather than Bow Street and Matilda Street, because Callum Street's going to be buses pumping down there. And I don't know how many people, really want to sit. I mean, they just took the buses off Anketel Street in Tuggeranong, because who wants to sit there with buses pumping past you all the time? So I just find it really odd that our objective is to activate Callum Street. I would have thought it would have been the quieter or internal town centre streets that we want to activate. And anyway, I bring that up because you've got your active, entrance in it. Anyway, it's something I think we need to take up with the broader plan for Woden.
So I think with the light rail coming on Callum Street, it was one of the comments from I guess the DRP that we already have the existing club and there's actually no access from that whole street. So they were really sort of looking or hinting at a sort of a mid-block connection. So we do have that connection that we're proposing now, so people can sort of duck through and you can then get all the way through as a, you could not visit actually the club or the precinct, but just walk through. Do you know what I mean? So we've got all those sort of mid-block connections now. And I guess the community, a little community space and the coffee, that's only a small area on Callum Street. When I look at the plan, it's actually all the other streets are much more activated. And that was part of the strategy of putting the loading under, is to get it off Bow Street.
Interesting that you talk about the loading, because I am sure when we talked about the CIT, they had the waste collection in the middle of the ground floor of the CIT because they told us they couldn't go under to do it. So anyway, I think that's something we should follow up with the CIT about.
Different team.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that we had probably better keep moving along. A question there by Martin. We're going to keep moving. They're very heavy meeting this morning, getting through a whole heap of stuff.
Yes, thanks for the presentation. Who do you think will, what the auditorium, what do you envisage for that, for having what sort of events there? I know it's your 40-year anniversary, and I think the Ramones played in 1980. So at the Hellenic Club, yes. So is there any chance of, having international bands and that sort of thing?
Well, I actually think that that's part of the brief from the club to us, is that they need a venue which can be sort of international standard and to be able to attract attract the bands or attract the events here. So they currently do have, events, I believe most weekends, but they actually could have more patrons and more people there, but they just don't have either the parking facility or the space and the rooms, the multi-use rooms in which to accommodate it. So having that auditorium there is actually going to be a real draw card to bring a number of different events and people, to Woden.
No, to the Hellenic Club. Well, when they drive in under and they go up to the Hellenic Club and then they come back down, most of them will be absorbed into that up, down, out. And I don't know.
The same would happen with an indoor sports event. Yeah. So you can't have activation and then expect that a person will go for a particular event and then utilize the entire town centre. They're coming for a reason. So whether it's a swimming pool, an indoor sports stadium, a basketball arena, an auditorium at the Hellenic Club.
Sorry, I don't understand the question. Yeah.
Sorry, Nora, what was that?
You sold your car park, so I'm just wondering who you sold it to, and that's also a loss of car parking for you.
Oh, that's not a question I can answer. Which car park?
So the development is proposed for the existing club car park, which is directly next door to the club as it stands. All of the replacement parking that's for the parking that's there and all of the parking that's being generated by the new uses will be provided in the 4-level basement. There's a surface car park to the south, which is a territory-owned asset, which these guys will talk about in the next 30 to 50 seconds.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thanks for coming and providing that update about the Hellenic Club. All right, now we will have to whip through. If we can make this work.
I think we just hit, if we hit share. There we go. And then we just open that up.
Can everybody see that? Yay.
Can we click that? All righty, it's working. Good evening, everyone. My name is Drew Jamison. I'm the Senior Development Manager for Urban Releases at the Suburban Land Agency. I'll be quick, noting that it is very late this evening. I have 2 updates. The first one, I'm going to talk about the most recent indicative land release program that came out on Saturday and the sites that are going to be released over the next 5 years in Woden. So the very first block is the one we've just been talking about to the south of the Hellenic Club, which is known as Section 7. That will be released in our current financial year. No blocks released in the next financial year, but the one after in 24-25, we have Athlon Drive and 2 blocks within Mawson. And then the following year, we have Curtin, Block 12 and 13, Section 99. So I'll just show you some quick images of it. So this is the site that we're about to release in our current financial year, Section 7. It's identified for 200 dwellings, of which there are 20 affordable dwellings and 10 community dwellings. Plus all of the 370 parking spaces must be retained on site. Then there is, if we see in the precinct code, there is that bit of open space along Matilda Street that was being mentioned in the Hellenic Club presentation. So we will be providing this new open space. And then there is also a new north-south road connection to be provided through the site from Bow Street through to Matilda Street. So although the minimum requirements in the land release program is for 200 dwellings, when we go to release it, there'll be opportunities for the developer to undertake other uses, whether that's office, specialty medical facilities, anything else that's permissible within the land uses, we would be looking to seek innovative proposals for that site. The following releases are the sites along Athlon Drive, so that's for 580 dwellings in RZ5, and then Park Block 25, Section 47, which is currently the car park next to the tennis courts, that's for 40 dwellings, and then the site next to the Mawson Club, the car park there, will be for more commercial uses. It will also need to retain its car parking on site, given that we are in a major group centre. And then further down the years, the indicative land release program used to be for 4 years, it's now for 5. We have the sites in Curtin. This is, I think it's currently used as the emergency services facility, but it is going to be redeveloped for 60 uses and additional community facilities. So that's just a very quick snapshot of what came out for Woden in the indicative land release program. But what I'm going to talk to you more about is that specifically the car park in Section 7 and what our intention is with that and what our plans are immediately. So we're about to undertake community engagement for the next 5 to 6 months, and I hope everyone in this room and everyone online can come and join us, because from that we'll be creating what's known as a place design brief. So what does the place design brief mean, and what does that mean for the Suburban Land Agency? So we have a vision that is to create great places where communities thrive. So although, yes, we are a land release authority or agency, we're more specifically focused on creating places. And in order to do that, we need to understand from the community through engagement first, and then doing the design, what are the community's thoughts, visions, objectives, ideas for our site, that we can then inform our future developers what we want. So why are we engaging and preparing this place design brief? We understand that we need to look at what is the most important elements of the site to the community before we put the land up for sale. We know that the community knows best how Phillip works, and that we want to look at what people value about the town centre and what needs to be considered in the objectives when we release the land for sale. Now, there are 2 key outcomes of the place design brief. It is a physical document that forms the backbone of our sales documents. It forms a legal component of our contract for sale. And from that, interested tenderers, because we will be selling the site via a design-based tender, they will need to provide us with a design concept that responds directly to the place design brief that is created by the community. So it is a very key component for our sales process. So who gets to be involved and who should be involved in this process? Like I said, everyone in this room, everyone participating online, the Woden Valley Community Council and all your members, all community members from every demographic, we want to be involved on site. The SLA project team, myself as the team leader and my companions. We have internal place champions, and then we will also be engaging in the next week or so our expert consultants who will be facilitating the community engagement process. We'll also be partnering with our other directorates. As we all know, there is a lot of major work happening in the area, so we want to ensure that the work that we do understands and is aware of the work happening by TCCS, Major Projects Canberra, the Light Rail and the CIT, and the key stakeholders. We've got Hellenic Club in the room with us tonight and the Southern Cross Club. I've already met with Hellenic Club before. They may not be aware that I actually sit on the National Capital Design Review panel. So I've seen all the work from the other side, but we want to make sure that they're involved in our work as well, because we want to create a holistic precinct within the area. So as Fiona mentioned before, not piecemeal elements. This is a very large site within Woden Town Centre, and we want to make sure that we are creating a cohesive precinct with all of our neighbouring projects. So what does the place design brief physically look like as a document? Well, basically the key element is community members are telling the industry what they want on the site. That is the fundamental point of the place design brief, and that becomes a key sales element in our contracts. And that actually tangibly qualifies what we want in different elements for the site. We've got open space that will quantify open space elements, street elements, landscape elements, building facade elements. It breaks it down into different components of the site, essentially like a kit of parts that can be interpreted in different ways, but it spells out explicitly what are undesirable elements for the site. So if we're building a park, what is an undesirable park? We've got plenty of examples for that, but we need to be very clear what the community does not want. And then from there, we define what a successful element would be. What is a successful park? And tenderers must tick all of the boxes to create a successful park. And then we define what is a highly desirable park. And there could be 10 elements in that. And we want to see, can they provide us as many elements in addition to the successful elements within the highly desirable elements of the park, or the street, or the landscape, or building frontages. So we explicitly spell out to developers what we do not like, what we do like, and what we absolutely love for the site. And it becomes a community-owned document that becomes then a sales document for the SLA to inform industry what is the perfect Section 7, what does that look like from a community objective, identifying the community narrative for the site and what are the site-specific objectives. So where are we up to in the process? So we are about to engage our place consultant. They'll get on board in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to start the consultation process end of August, early September, and they'll run through to December, December potentially to January. There'll be lots of workshops involved. It'll be interactive. There'll be surveys. There'll be online processes. It'll be an extensive period of engagement that we will have this document that forms part of our contract. Then once we have that, and it is agreed by the community, by the Suburban Land Agency, we will then prepare our sales documentation to release the site for sale in Q3 of the current financial year. The tendering process takes about 6 to 8 months. And then once we've chosen a preferred tenderer, we then exchange contracts, and they have 2 years to achieve their development application. At which point, during those 2 years, the Suburban Land Agency participates in design review and design endorsement before they're allowed to submit to the planning authority for approvals, so that we ensure that what was promised in the tender is actually delivered prior to us settling on the block of land. So there are many mechanisms in place to make sure that the engagement that we undertake is actually valued, is actually understood by the future developer to be a very core component of our contract. And then we can guarantee at the end of it a very high quality development that has been, the community has been included in the process. So hopefully the process will finish in about the financial year 25-26. So it's a very long process for the Suburban Land Agency. And then that's when construction should start sometime in 2026. So I've made that a bit quick, just noting it is 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So opening up to questions.
Question. You got one online? So please the online.
Yeah, it's good.
There's probably a few questions I've got actually. First one is, why wasn't this site considered for the CIT? I tried to get a hold of the consultant report, but they wouldn't release it. Just to go through some figures here. Loss of sporting facilities. We've lost over 50,000 square metres of indoor and outdoor sporting facilities here in Woden. And public space, public open space, we've lost probably about 10,000 square metres of public open space in the Woden Town Centre. I could add Arabadoo Park, but that's been rezoned for community facilities. But as you know, community facilities can mean supportive housing as well, so that could go as well. And in terms of a place plan, I think we need a place plan for the whole of the Woden Town Centre. I would go further and say a public study for the whole town centre in terms of its urban open space and public life.
break that down into a few components. So the CIT site location is a decision not for the Suburban Land Agency. So that would come from, I think, the Education Directorate and the Planning Authority. So we are at the very end of the process once a decision is made for a site to be released either for education or community or private development. We are the ones that are developing at the end. So those more broadly strategic decisions come from EPSDD, which is the planning authority part of government. So unfortunately, I can't answer why those decisions were made. They were made many years before I joined the Suburban Land Agency. So unfortunately, all I can discuss is what we're doing on our site. I do agree that place planning for the Woden Town Centre is absolutely needed. There is currently planning reform happening at the moment with the territory, which includes district planning. So it's a new level of planning within the territory that looks at it, not just at a very broad territory scale or an individual block scale, but more of that intermediate scale where it will pick up those elements that you're talking about that are missing within the Woden region, the recreation, sporting facilities. So that's something that I understand become open for comments. I think it's in November of this year. So that more intermediate level of planning is currently underway, but that's being dealt with by the planning authority. So I would absolutely encourage you to, once it becomes publicly available, read into that, provide comments. I think it's going to.
But aren't you our city renewal authority? Aren't you our, isn't the Suburban Land Agency renewal authority of Woden and all the other town centres?
Yes, so we will do the land development once all of those broader strategic those decisions are made by the planning authority. So they do the broader strategic decisions and identify which blocks should be developed for what different types of land use, residential, commercial, and industrial, community. And once those decisions are made, and then they get made through the indicative land release program, which gets released every year with budget, that's when those projects then get handed towards the Suburban Land Agency. So we're kind of at the very last step of the release process.
I guess the fear is that they're just going to tell us, and it'll be second rate.
Well, hopefully those new district plans when they come out later in the year, help alleviate some of these concerns about what's happening at that more strategic level with what's identified missing for Woden.
I've got concerns that you're actually turning this whole area into a concrete jungle. You've got greenery stuff there that you're wanting to knock down and to turn into a concrete jungle. I don't know how high the buildings are going to go. I don't think it's really a good idea.
So if I go back to this slide back here, we are introducing where there's currently, so the site is predominantly concrete at the moment, being used as car parking and the bus layover. It's hard to see, my mouse isn't pointing on the screen, but you can see that hatched area along Matilda Street in the diagram. So that's a 20-metre deep lineal park that will be landscaped and it'll be full of trees and it'll be a deep soil zone. And that's something that during this process, we would, like to have articulated by the community what that new open space should look like, whether it's, the playground equipment that's been identified for missing for the future residents, whether it's, spaces spill out for restaurants or whatever. That will be new open space, actual landscape open space where it's currently car parking. Along with the new streets that we're introducing, it won't be just concrete and some token trees. We do need, as to fulfill the requirements of the living infrastructure strategy, we do need actual trees with deep soil zones that provide shade, and hopefully some mitigation to wind. So proper landscaping is absolutely at the forefront of our mind for this precinct, because it is currently just a concrete car park. In terms of the building heights you mentioned, so the precinct is for 12 stories, with one building that can go up to 16 stories, which will be towards the centre of the Woden Town Centre.
If the developer or 8 separate blocks. Sorry, if the developer, once you sell it, separates that block into 4, 8, whatever, they each can go up to 16 stories.
So, and that's a good point. So that's the reason why we're doing this design-based tender, So when a tenderer puts in a submission to us, they provide us with a concept which details their buildings. And if they've subdivided it into 8 buildings that are all 16 stories, that won't fulfill the requirements that the SLA will have for the site. And so that would be an unsuccessful tender submission. And in order for us to make sure that, once we've chosen a good design, and the design in the tender evaluation, the concept design is 50% of the evaluation. It's more than double the financial component of the tender submission. It is a key component of the evaluation for the site. So that's why we have that. And then we don't settle on the site until they have achieved a development application that fulfills the requirements that they promised us in the tender submission. It also ties it to their lease, so they can't if they settle, they can't subdivide later and try and get around it at a later date because their lease is then tied to an original concept. So it's absolutely a concern, and that's why we've gone through this process, which it takes 4 years for us to complete. So it's a lengthy process, but it's to mitigate those concerns because we are more concerned about getting a good design outcome than just getting a quick sale and quick release.
You just talked about lease conditions. I've read the information for the new planning bill, and it said that the government was getting rid of lease conditions. There was going to be some new development thing that would just be for the time of the development time. So is this?
Well, it really depends on the way that we sell the lease. Sometimes we do it either via crown lease, holding lease. We're doing it via a concept delivery deed process. So it really comes down to, and we write a lease per site to make sure that we get what we want. So that's something that we'll work out later with the government solicitor on exactly how we write our leases. But it is the intention is the concept delivery deed gets tied into the crown lease, so it can't be amended post settlement.
It sounds like an excellent idea, and that's one of the comments I put in my comments about the planning bill, that leases had a purpose, and I couldn't see why lease
That's right.
conditions had a purpose.
Yeah.
I couldn't see why the planning bill proposed to get rid of them.
That's interesting. We're still working with the leasing process and holding leases. So.
That's certainly what it said. But I was actually going to ask you, you probably can't answer questions. Can you answer questions about the development along Athlon Drive? Or is that way outside?
So Athlon Drive is still with the planning authority. They're doing their due diligence studies, so doing contamination testing and geotech testing and things like that. So they're still undertaking all those processes so that they can fully understand the site before they give it to us. So it's still, I think we've got that for the 24-25 financial year. So it's not, we're vaguely aware of it, but it's not on our radar just yet.
No, we're good.
We're all good.
Yeah.
Well, I would encourage everyone to attend the community engagement. Once we've locked in our consultant and we know the dates that we're going to start, we'll communicate through Fiona so that those dates can be sent through. And there'll be a lot of communications through Your Say, and we'll do a lot of letterbox drops and things like that to make sure that the community is very aware, because we do value your opinion. It is actually part of our contract for sale. It will be a valued input into our work. So we do look forward to seeing.
Do you think we could have a conversation with Major Projects Canberra and the CIT, because the CIT is at the core of the place?
They actually interface with our southern boundary.
Yeah, and so it would be really good to have a conversation with the CIT and Major Projects Canberra, because that is a government-owned building, a government-built building, and so they have got opportunities there for public spaces. And
yeah, so I actually sit in the CIT working groups at the moment.
Ooh.
So I'm actually involved with CIT on the periphery. There's actually a public plaza on the northern front of their site.
Yeah, I know,
but yeah, but we will be inviting them into our workshops as well, because they're still in their design phase. We want them to be involved in our workshops as well. So
they want to put the youth foyer on the western side. So, when you come down what I call the Princess Stairs down from the town square, you've got what in the original plans in the 1970s was it was a foyer.
Yep.
It's a perfect spot to have a big central green park and then activate everything around there.
Yeah.
And they want to put the youth foyer there, which we support the youth foyer,
Yeah.
but there's a youth centre just
on the other side.
There?
Yeah,
Why couldn't we put the youth foyer with the youth centre and have all those wraparound services for young people?
Yeah.
And a park, and the community centre is supposed to be there.
yeah, I understand there's a new community centre
Yeah,
next to
supposed to be
Callum
on the
offices.
north side of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Callum offices. So you could have all that wraparound support services in the youth there and the CRT, it's all there. And then we could have a nice central green park
Yeah.
in the middle. It would be so.
They are proposing some quite nice landscaping through that area. So it from the concepts that I've seen, it does look quite lovely. So, but we will be, asking them to participate into our discussion so they can tell you what they're allowed to tell you.
Well, that, what could be a green park, they are having a residential building and a road through to connect Bradley Street with Bow Street. Whereas if this is about, access for Grand Central, they could run up that road and get out that way, they don't.
Oh yeah, on the western side of Grand Central.
Well, there's Bow Street and there's the new one, but to put a road to that connecting road, there's going to be a rat run. And we're pushing traffic back into the town centre.
I don't think you'd want to drive through the new road.
Yeah, well, if it goes 10 kilometres an hour, but anyway, there's such opportunity there for
Yeah.
a nice green central park and that connects north, south, east, west.
Nothing is fixed in their design yet.
Yeah, good. Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you
It's
very much.
refreshing.
All right.
So the design process, at least, we
The
have
design-
met with Drew a couple of times and that's
And the design.
a good process.
And we've designed nothing so far, so we are starting from scratch.
Yeah, because how do we know, you tell us that we know best, but we don't know because we don't know where we're being told that the heart will move down to Callum
You'll be
Street.
surprised through the workshops, how much you know and how much we can glean information out of you about what is best for our site and the broader Woden. The workshops are quite enjoyable. So
Okay.
you'll see.
Thank you. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Oh, hello, everybody still there. That's just terrific. Thank you for coming. Don't know if you can still hear. But I'll end the meeting now. Thank you. Bye.